Okay, the next chapter, chapter 13, is the spinal cord. We're going to be talking about that, for example, the functions, conduction, because it allows us to take information up and down the spinal cord to reach the brain. Neurointegration, there's a lot of coordination that happens at the level of our spinal cord. Locomotion, it involves a continuous movement of coordination of muscles in order to walk, and this coordination happens many times at the level of the spinal cord. Reflexes is also another very important function, because in the case of reflexes, most of the time the brain does not work and all the coordination happens at the level of the spinal cord. So let's take a look at the surface anatomy. What do we have right here in the case of the spinal cord? Spinal cord is inside the vertebral column. As you can see here, this is your vertebral column. The vertebral column is composed of vertebrae, and inside the vertebrae you have the vertebral foramen, and inside the vertebral foramen you can see in there the spinal cord. Spinal cord starts at the base of the brain, comes out of the skull through the foramen magnum, and goes all the way down here to the lumbar area approximately, where it's going to end. The bottom part of the spinal cord is called the medullary cone, or condus medullaris, as you can see right here, and that's where it ends. Now, what continues after that is a lot of nerves that will go down towards the sacrum. This set of nerves are going to be called the cauda equina. So how do we anchor this spinal cord so it doesn't move? Because if it moves, it will create a lot of pain and it may damage the spinal cord. So it hangs from the bottom of the brain, right through the spinal cord, and it has some ligaments that it will help you attach them to the walls of the vertebrae. And also down here is going to have some sort of ligament. Right here you can see it in brown, which is called the terminal phylum. Okay, we're going to see that in a little bit. So if we keep scrolling down, or actually before we do that, we know from the spinal cord, what you're going to have coming out of it are going to be nerves. In the first part of this chapter, I show you that we have sensory receptors that go up to your brain, and there are motor receptors that go down from your brain, up and down through your spinal cord. Okay, so then what are all these? These are going to be nerves. Since these nerves are going to be located in your spinal cord, they're going to be called spinal nerves. Okay, so let's keep scrolling down. And we see now a cut of the spinal cord. So we cut the spinal cord, and we can see in here the spinal cord. You can see here some attachments, the denticular ligaments, which I was telling you they are going to anchor the spinal cord to the walls of the vertebrae so it doesn't move. Not only that, you can see here sensory nerve, motor nerve in yellow. Sensory nerve and motor nerve. Remember, we always have sensory and have motor nerves. In blue, you see here in blue, this area protects the spinal cord. This blue area is a fluid that we have inside the vertebral column in order to protect the spinal cord. This fluid not only protects the spinal cord but also the brain, therefore it's called the cerebrospinal fluid. Another thing that protects the spinal cord and the brain are going to be these three membranes right here. These three membranes in pink, light blue, and brown, they are called the meninges. This one is the dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. So what protects your spinal cord? Well, basically we said we have the terminal phylum that anchors the spinal cord to the bottom and into the sacrum. We have the meninges, which are three: dura mater, pia mater, and arachnoid mater. And we also have the fluid, which said that's going to be the cerebrospinal fluid. We will talk about the fluid later on. So right here, we have the spinal cord only after we remove the vertebrae, so we can see what are the characteristics that we have right here. So the characteristics that we have right here is that you're going to have two main areas, one clear and the other one is dark. The clear is the white matter. The dark one is the gray matter. Dark matter is going to have columns, as you can see here, white matter, columns. But the gray matter is going to have horns. So the spinal cord can be divided into three pieces: posterior, medial, and anterior. So then what columns you're going to have? Anterior column, medial column, posterior column, depending on the location. Gray matter, same thing. What are you going to have? Posterior horn, medial horn, anterior horn. The gray matter is connected by this brown area right here in the middle. That's called the gray commissure. In the middle of the gray commissure, we're going to have a hole. This hole is called the central canal. The central canal will allow the flow of the cerebrospinal fluid through your spinal cord. And posterior to the central canal, you're going to have the posterior median sulcus. And anterior to the central canal, you're going to have the anterior median fissure. Okay, so not only that, these characteristics that we have in the spinal cord, but we also have these nerves. We said that we have two main kinds of nerves: sensory nerves and motor nerves. So this one is going to be sensory, this one is going to be motor. Same thing applies to this side. This is going to be sensory, this one is going to be motor. How do we know which one is sensory and which one is motor? You look right here at this enlargement. This is the posterior root ganglion. It says posterior because it's on the back. Every single time that you find the posterior, that is because it's sensory. So this is going to be sensory, posterior, and this is going to be sensory as well, because right here you can see the ganglion. So if this is posterior and this is posterior, then what is this? This is going to be anterior, therefore this is going to be what? Motor. This is also anterior, and this is going to be motor. So what is this? This is a cross section of the spinal cord where we can see all these different characteristics. Now, we were saying also when we were explaining the nerve, we said that if it's posterior, sends the information up to your brain, right? If it's sensory, sends information up to your brain. If it's motor, takes the information out from your spinal cord into your muscles so you can move them. So then there are two characteristics that you need to understand about this. When the nerves are outside the spinal cord, they are going to form plexus. When the nerves are inside the spinal cord, they are going to form tracts. T-R-A-C-T. Tracts. So how many type of tracts can we have? Since we have two different kinds of nerves, sensory and motor, then we're going to have two different kinds of tracts. The sensory sends information up to your brain so you can feel something. So then since these ones go up, then these ones are going to be called ascending tracts. Your brain may want to scratch something because it itches, sends information down. Therefore, there's going to be a descending tract. So how many type of tracts we have? We have ascending tracts and descending tracts, and these tracts are located inside the spinal cord. When the nerves are outside the spinal cord, now they're going to form a plexus. Okay, we have seen all this in the cross-sectional anatomy of the spinal cord. So if we keep scrolling down, we're going to see in there the meninges of the spinal cord. We already mentioned that dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater, they protect the spinal cord. We also cover the cross-sectional anatomy where we mentioned that we have gray matter and white matter. Gray matter shows you horns, white matter shows you columns. If we keep scrolling down, we have right there gray matter. Again, we have anterior, posterior, and median horns. And in the case of the white matter, we're going to have columns, anterior, medial, and posterior columns. Spinal tracts, we already mentioned that as well. We said we have ascending tracts, which are going to be sensory because they send the information up to your brain. And we said we also have descending tracts, right here, ascending tracts and descending tracts, because we said those come down from your brain in order, for example, to move your muscles. So if we keep scrolling down, you can see here some examples of where these tracts are located. And as you can see here, if they go up, ascending tracts. If it's ascending, it's sensory. Or you have these ones, green, descending tracts. Obviously, you're going to have both on each side, right? This is just for educational purposes that you have green on one side and red on the other side. So if we keep scrolling down, we can see ascending tracts. So you have a nice figure in there where you can see here, you see right here it says receptors for pain. So this is in your skin. As you can, if you follow the arrow, you see it goes up. So this is going to be an ascending tract. Okay, so sensory are always ascending tracts. So if we keep scrolling down, there you have the names of these tracts. You have a nice table in there. We'll go back to that table in a second. And you have right there descending tracts. Descending tracts, the information will go down from your brain. As you can see here, this is your brain, and you see the tracts, the nerves going down and the arrow going down. So obviously this is going to be descending because it goes down from your brain down into your muscles, right? And right here, as you can see, it says to skeletal muscles. One very important part that you need to understand right here is that some descending tracts, the nerves that come down, they cross. As you can see here, you see they cross. Not all of them, but a big percentage of nerves cross. Some other ones they just continue straight. This crossing is called decussation. And in what part of your nervous system this happens? It happens at the level of the brainstem, specifically in the medulla oblongata, as you can see it right here. Okay, so this is called decussation of the pyramids, because this part of the medulla oblongata is called the pyramids. And since they cross, that's why it's called decussation of the pyramids, because it happens in the pyramids, and decussation means crossing. As you can see here, the fibers cross. This is a very important characteristic that we have in the descending tracts. So if we scroll up for 1 second, we can see here a table where you can see the major spinal tracts, and they are divided in ascending tracts, sensory, or descending tracts, motor. It's more than enough that you know that there are ascending and descending tracts, and that ascending are sensory and descending are motor. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know the names or the functions of every single one of them. Okay? So it's not important for you to know that. Just to know that there are ascending and descending tracts. Okay, let's scroll down to see what else we have. We already covered descending tracts, ascending tracts, and that's about it for this part.